So I met Mira at IAPP, which is the privacy conference this year, back in April or May, I guess April. And I heard her give a great talk. She was on a panel, and I rushed to before she left to see if she would talk to our chapter about privacy engineering, because it is an area that I think that there's not a lot of people in cyber going in this area. And I want to really figure out, I want everybody to hear her story. I don't even know her story yet. That's one of the reasons that's going to be the part of the fun of this. But how does somebody get into privacy engineering? There's no certifications in privacy engineering. It's a relatively new field. And I want everybody's looking for jobs. Privacy is hot right now. So I want people to know that there are other areas to look at besides cybersecurity if you're technical, or just what else is out there. So I thought this would be a great opportunity. So Mira works at DoorDash, and I think she'll have a lot to say. So without further ado, let me just give you the spotlight, and why don't you give yourself a proper introduction, Mira, please?
Sure. Thank you, Ken, and hello, everyone. It's great to be here tonight. My name is Mira. I am a privacy engineer, and I am a case study in how one accidentally arrives in the privacy space. As Ken said, and as many of you know, privacy engineering is still very much a new field. Privacy law is still very much in development. And so we kind of think of privacy and the technical part of privacy to be 10 to 15-ish years behind cybersecurity. I came into the field, again, completely by accident. A long, long time ago, 4-ish lifetimes ago, I was an economist working at the World Bank, and through various life changes, I eventually found my way into I worked with National Geographic and PBS for some time as a fixer and field producer on the ground in Latin America. And for a brief stint, I owned a business, a yoga and cycling studio in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So 8 years ago, when I landed in San Francisco, I needed a way to spin my narrative. What were my skill sets, and how did that fit into the tech world? I knew I liked to help people. I knew I liked the analytical side of things. I wanted to learn, and I knew that I could problem solve, and I knew that I could reverse engineer roadmaps. So that led me to by networking and happenstance, a job with NCC Group as a program manager on the cybersecurity side of things. So I was initially working running the pen testing program at Facebook for NCC Group, and worked with some of the other big tech companies doing program management in the vulnerability management pen testing space, which then led me to Uber. And I was with Uber for 4.5 years. Working on their security side, more on the ground physical security, but tangentially with the cybersecurity team. But that quickly spun into I had an opportunity to start supporting the technical privacy team. It was really by chance that I was looking for an opportunity to grow within my team or within the company at Uber, and I connected with a product manager on the privacy team, just to learn about what they were doing on that side of things. And he connected me with his manager, Nishant Bajaria, who is a known figure in the privacy engineering space, who gave me an opportunity. Who said, if you want to come over and learn and help us out with some data analytics and help learn technical privacy review on the ground, you're welcome to do so. And I took that opportunity, and that was 4-ish years ago at this point. So I was with the technical privacy team at Uber for about 3 years, and then have been with DoorDash for a little over coming up on 8 months. I see in the chat, yeah, Nishant has an excellent book on privacy engineering. It's one of the key books I would recommend if you're interested in the space of privacy engineering. It's as is CIPT is a great place to start as well.
Well, he actually spoke at one of our meetings.
Did he?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
Nishant's a good friend and mentor still.
yes.
Yeah, his departure from Uber was what precipitated, I think, a handful of us leaving. Once he left Uber, we all missed him and the team that he led, and so that was our opportunity to pivot and look for opportunities elsewhere.
Interesting. Very nice. So can you give us a little bit of an idea of what a privacy engineer does on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, it's an ambiguous space, and it's actually it's funny, it's a little bit contentious. It's a hot topic within the privacy engineering space. There are sort of various buckets of how privacy engineering can be described. You can think of the actual software engineers that that write the code and that build the tools that support privacy law. You can think of a deletion tool or a consent management tool or a DSAR tool for data subject access requests. The engineers that build those tools are considered privacy engineers. You also have folks really in the program management side of privacy, who are working more on the legal side, legal teams, trying to understand, support the legal team to really understand the privacy law, that are many privacy laws, CCPA, GDPR, whatever your organization has to comply with in a regulatory space, and creating internal policies that would map to those or comply with those. That's another type of privacy engineer. I really sit in the middle. I'm a privacy architect, or I call myself a privacy architect. I do a bit of both. I have to sit in this, actually, it's a term that Nishant coined. I'm connective tissue. So I have to understand the regulatory space, privacy law, our internal policies, and I have to understand where the policies and our technical capabilities are aligned, and where there are big flaring gaps that then I need to dive in really as a TPM of sorts, and a product manager of sorts, to go in and remediate those gaps. So I'm helping implement, turning privacy law into technical solutions, working with engineers to design those solutions, looking at systems architecture to really understand how data moves through systems, and build for compliance.
Very nice. So a lot of people here, are still naive with what privacy is, and a lot of people, and they all have their own definition. So let's hear what your definition of the difference between how security differs from privacy.
Yeah,
Because
I think of it. Yeah, I think
yeah,
of it in sort of two folds. There's a sort of two definitions I think of. One, the simplest is a security incident, for example, becomes a privacy incident when personal data is involved. So it can be both. Like, there can be a security incident can be a privacy incident, but a security incident isn't always a privacy incident. Privacy really indicates that there's personal data, whether it is consumer data, whether it's employee data, but there's personal data that describes a unique individual, that is flowing through a system that an organization is collecting, using, storing, processing, should be deleting, but probably isn't deleting. That is where, that's the scope of privacy. We think of security, we're thinking about the CIA confidentiality, integrity and availability. So you're kind of thinking of the fortress when you were thinking of security, and privacy is about how that data within a system is used. Is it used appropriately? Do those who have access to that data internally within a system, so security is like the fortress on the outside, ensuring that bad actors can't use the data. Internally, those who have access to the data, are they using that personal data appropriately?
All right. Thank you. Now, let me ask you this. Where do you see the future of, since this is such a evolving area, where do you see the future for yourself, and for the profession as a whole, as it starts to gain more and more traction?
My opinion is one of this is entirely my opinion, but it's growing in importance. I think there's GDPR really led the charge with creating visibility on the issue of privacy. Back in 2016, the company scrambled to implement for compliance for 2018, and most companies are still not there. Meanwhile, we're seeing in the US, California driving the force, but now Virginia, various states independently are enacting privacy laws, and we're seeing in Congress a bigger push for a national privacy regulation, privacy law, which is still very much in the works, but we're getting closer. Every iteration, we're getting a little bit closer to something even baseline privacy. So I think it's a space that's it's only going to get more important, and there's only going to be greater need for privacy engineers, really those who either do the privacy architecture work, that understanding of what laws are in place, and being able to communicate with engineers to build tools, or or the privacy engineers who actually build the tooling, because even though tech tends to move, and data progress moves a lot faster than regulatory space, what we're seeing in terms of laws coming through and the speed with which they're changing, companies are already at a deficit. We're already behind the curve, and government's regulations, regulators are starting to scrutinize more and look more carefully at organizations as big tech, Google's, Apple's, Facebook's are getting fined. It's becoming more important that companies figure out a way to build the technical solutions for the privacy regulations that are coming forward.
All right. And there's a lot of questions here, but I want to just follow the train of thought. So, in hindsight now, what are some skills that people would need to get in order to dive into this growing field?
Yeah,
Yeah.
interest. Again, I came into this, I am not a lawyer. I see that was do I have to have a legal background? I learned the system design work, the engineering side of things on the ground really from the time I picked up the cybersecurity side of things. So I already had a little bit more of technical understanding, but the legal piece I learned on the ground. So a desire to learn is key. A willingness to put in the time to understand kind of the overarching, the big concepts, and the big privacy engineering principles, which are they carry through most of the big privacy laws, GDPR, CCPA, Brazil's law, India's law, all have regulations around storage limitation, meaning data should be deleted when it's no longer needed. Purpose limitation, you're only using data in the way that you've told your users you are collecting it for. You're collecting consents, these sorts of things. So you're building a general understanding. And one thing that I often say is really communication skills are crucial in this field, because you're often, unless you are the real software engineer that's just building the tooling, you need to work in a translator space. I think of myself most days as a translator. I'm doing two-way translation from engineering speak into legalese and vice versa. So it's really being able to understand your audience, ask questions, and communicate at high levels, technical challenges, and communicate regulatory requirements into technical speak.
So it's like a business analyst in a way.
A bit, yes. Yes, there's a lot of kind of gap analysis going on. How 100%.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, let me take some of these questions here. All right, Edwin asks, how do you negotiate with teams that want to keep data just in case, such as marketing, even though it may become eventually inaccurate because it's been kept for so long?
That's an excellent question, and that is the thorn in my side perpetually. Everybody needs data forever, all the time, right? Um, so there's a few ways to approach the argument. You try to start with the carrot and then often have to use the stick as well. The carrot being there are cost saving measures to deleting data. Really, we can economize here, focusing on, how long do you really need the data? Like what's your true look back window in terms of relevancy? And so we want to stay as relevant as we can. So we don't need data after X point. And then leaning on consumer trust is a big point. It sells to at least to high level leadership. ELT really likes to hear about and be able to say, we're building and being able to retain and gain new users because we treat data appropriately. So leaning on the consumer trust side of things, the efficiency, cost savings, and then there's always the fear mongering side of the stick, which is, and our competitor Uber was just slammed with this massive fine, and last week Facebook had this massive fine for, and you show out the cart of, they were all doing exactly what I'm asking you to do, so let's not get the FTC involved. There's a bit of that.
Listen, if it works for cyber, there's a way to do it, make it work for privacy as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting when I moved over from Uber to DoorDash, Uber being subject to GDPR on the one hand, also having an FTC consent decree, moving over to DoorDash, which has neither of those. It's been, I'm having to get a little more creative in how I'm inspiring engineers to work with me.
Yeah, I get that, right? Because they haven't been burned yet.
Yeah.
So interesting. But all right, we got another question here. What is the future of the profession in the presence of AI tools? Here we go. Will AI one day replace the privacy professional?
That's one of the areas I don't think they will, because of the nature of AI. One of the key principles of privacy and all of these privacy laws is that one, there's explainability, so we can explain how a model's working, why it's working the way it's working, and that there is an opportunity for individual participation, meaning that if that an individual always has the right to know if I was a driver for a rideshare app and I'm banned because of some automated decision making, because of AI. Was doing something for us. There has to be a human in the loop in order to verify any decisions that were made based on automated decision making. So built into the regulation is a need for human review. and an ability to contest decision making. But additionally, AI's really it's challenging as a concept itself, because once data is fed into AI, there's no way to delete it. And all these privacy laws also require that a user has a right to a rasher, or a user when you want to, you go into your app of whatever app you're using and you request, delete my account, that any data that company has associated with you in their thousands and thousands and thousands of tables should be deleted. But once data is fed into an AI system, it can't be deleted because AI can't forget. So this is actually one of the big challenges that privacy is facing currently, is how do we address this? How do we kind of work with AI to our advantage to automate certain things, but still protecting the end user's right to privacy? It's a great question, and we'll see. But no, I think because of some of the ambiguity of the nature of the work and the regulations, I don't think AI is going to replace privacy engineers anytime. I hope not.
It's in the regulation, right? So it's a unless AI starts writing the regulation, right?
Yeah, they might write the code, but in theory, we'll have people needing to read that code. Yeah.
So are some of the projects you're working on related to AI?
I have in the past. I'm currently not working on AI, although I'm hoping to use AI, starting in H2, build out an AI tool to help us with production data tagging and classification, moving away from a non-AI driven tool that we currently have, in order to keep things, to automate further and just expedite things. We're hoping to build out some AI tooling for that. And I've worked in the past, one way AI has been beneficial. When I was still with Uber, we were building out an AI driven tool to do our technical privacy reviews. So like on the security side, oftentimes you see privacy built into a security review. At Uber, we had decoupled those. We worked side by side, but when a new feature, new product, new whatever was being launched, that would go through the security review, if personal data was in scope, it would get flagged for a technical privacy review, as well as a privacy impact assessment. The privacy impact assessment was done by the lawyers. The technical privacy review, how the data was flowing through our systems, was done by my team. And so, but that, of course, it becomes exponential in terms of how many reviews you're doing. And so one of the things that we were using AI for was to build out an automated triage process to reduce our scope of work. One of the challenges there was building in being sure that how do we use AI? We can't use an open system with a backend that's ChatGPT that lives on top of ChatGPT, because then we'd be feeding potentially sensitive business data or user data into a system. And so there were some challenges around how do we use AI, how while being able to feed our data into the AI without letting that leak into systems outside of Uber's container. So
Great. Sounds like a great project, though.
very, very, there's a lot of, AI it's a blessing and a curse, I think, in our space, for sure. Both security and privacy. It's bringing some interesting challenges and some new efficiencies.
Very nice. Devar asks, do you see a move of companies to implement privacy controls in order to do the right thing and be ethical, or is it still the fear of getting caught, or the chance Someone's in their car, I think. Hold on. Okay. Or the chance of the need to explain in a cybersecurity incident that is used to promote compliance.
My diplomatic answer would be, at times, yes, I think companies are trying to do the right thing. In some instances, I've seen companies trying to do the right thing. My jaded answer, my honest answer is, I think what's best for the business, dollars and cents wise, is always what's going to be the driving force. So if privacy can be sold as an enhancement, you know, it's the seatbelt in the car that adds value, then it's doing the right thing. It becomes, when it can be sold as a feature, then it's part of this doing the right thing, and let's do the right thing and build towards privacy. But if that's in conflict with the business, with efficiencies, with bottom line dollars and cents, then it becomes well, we have to do it for compliance, and you find yourself in that space of needing to threaten with sticks more often than not.
Listen, I mean, it's the same case for cybersecurity. We all
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
You know, when money talks.
Yeah, it does. Sadly, we
It's
can't get away from that. Yeah.
I mean, look at all the fines that are going on right now, and yeah, no, it's wild, and all the states that are adopting policies. Sharon, what are we up to? How many states we got?
18 with enacted laws.
Wow. So that's
I keep an eye on that all the time. The tracker.
To get like a little text message, another state pop up.
No, I just occasionally go back to the window and refresh it. And I'm like, oh, what states do we have now?
Yeah, no, it's kind of crazy. And let's see. So how do you navigate the balance between protecting users' privacy and making sure that companies stay innovative? Because I think this is what all companies are facing,
Yeah.
because they want to be the leaders. They want to be, you know, like my law firm included. You know, they want to be the first to do AI and stuff like that. And you know, finding that balance can be very tough. Do you have any suggestions for people to
It's
deal with that?
Yeah, it's always a trade-off. I think finding there's always that trade-off. And I think in my experience, I never get everything that I want. I often come in swinging with grand plans of, I want to, you know, delete all data till the end of time forever. And I'm the one that ends up having to roll, you know, scale back my expectations. But I really dream big. I let myself dream big when I'm going into meetings with the business, and I do my best to find creative solutions. Oftentimes what a regulation might say, what you know, the legal team might say is, you have to delete the data, or let's use that example, you have to delete this user's data. But if I can work with the engineer and figure out a creative solution that understands, okay, if deleting data does what, you know, what we need to do is not necessarily delete the data, but we need to eliminate the risk of having identified data. So can we maintain data while de-identifying it from that user? Can we create a data set based on the existing data that is not directly tied or does not directly uniquely identify the individual, so that there's still value for the business. So I often find that is the challenge, is it's creative problem solving at the end of the day, but always starting with a giant wish list and being willing to scale back from there. Yeah.
Mira,
Understood.
I have a question too. Like,
Yeah.
what you were saying with the deletion too. I have the same challenges at work, and I'm not a yes no person, so it's always kind of, what's the benefit of the business, and the approach that we've taken is, well, do you need this data moving forward? And most often it's no, but there's benefit in that data at the same time, and it's like, well, can you put it through your anonymizer? No different than how we put it into our UAT or test or development, and cleanse that data and still get the benefits out of it by doing that approach. It seems to have a better feedback that's coming from the business. And then when they talk about old data, and they want to keep it as well too, I'm like, yeah, no, that you got to get rid of. But then I started talking about, you really don't want that data, because you're starting to look at AI, and that's going to also throw off your outcomes from what you want to get out of AI. Just because, like data from a person that's 20 years, they probably don't even, demographics doesn't even match where they are today and everything else. So, what are you trying to accomplish? And that seems to have better, we're partnering, they're deleting data, and it's working out. It's just every time they have new challenges, we just talk it through.
Yeah, you're helping to keep them more modern and efficient, and yeah.
And they understand too. It's not just saying, oh, this is for compliance reasons, you can't do this. It's, well, let's see what we can do.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that example.
Very nice. We got a question from Archana.
Thank you, Ken. Mira, so the question regarding the privacy aspect, right? The privacy aspect by definition has PII information tagged with it, right?
Yes.
And if we want to build an application or a thing that we want to use, like you mentioned, writing policies, this, that, and we want to build it for future, we want to put different data set in there that are not in use today, so we can build it for future, right? So it's the balancing act on what we do, how we do, and each company and each state has their own governing data retention policies, right? Like, look at your email, you don't delete it because you will need that. I mean,
Right.
we are such a data hogger, and having all those components in play, like how we collect data, how we keep data, and how we not get rid of data because of the data retention, the SOX requirement, and other things. How can a company efficiently use AI systems? Because creating an AI model and using your own data to trade it is going to be extremely expensive. So
Yes.
should we just sit behind the curve and not take action because it's expensive? Or should we start using something that is, catered by Google or Azure with their own data modeling, which we don't know how flawed that is and who really created, because their bias is baked into that. Just your thoughts on it, because it's a broad topic and it boggles my mind. From privacy perspective, how do you feel, think, and use it?
That's such a great question. And there's always, it's a trade-off, right? It really, I think it depends on your use case. A great example of this is thinking of data tagging. Ken heard me speak about this ad nauseum at IAPP. Really, if the best thing that a company can do for the sake of privacy is just know where your personal data is stored. And so you need to create a data map, and you need to tag that personal data at column level, so you know what you have where. Because then as regulations change, you can use an AI, you can not use an AI, you can automate systems, you can pivot and change, but at least you know what you have and where it is. But a really good example for going about that process is one of using ML models or AI systems. Do you build something in-house? that is catered to your data set, and it's safe because you're not feeding personal data into an external set. But it's built for your question or your problem set rather, or do you outsource? And for the, you're using a third party to do this because it's already built, they're going to promise you everything that it does, it does everything from A to the moon. It'll solve all your problems that you never knew you had. My experience from using third-party tools like that is often, at least let's talk about the data tagging world. You're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole at the end of the day. Any tool that wasn't built for your system around your data set is going to solve
Not
that.
the right.
Yeah, 75% of your problems, but you still have a big delta because that you're going to have to then, excuse me, create a manual solve for, or a workaround. Excuse me. So there is that trade-off. If you want to build and you have the time and the engineering resources, excuse me.
Okay.
I'm always an
Yeah.
advocate for building in-house. But AI is going to change that game because there's just so much speed in the AI space beyond the tools that already exist. A lot of these tools are now trying to adapt AI on the back end. So it's an evolving, it's a very volatile moment. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Thank you, Mira.
Yeah, great question. Thank you.
All right, we got time for, I think, like one more question. You've been talking a lot and we really appreciate it. So, all right. So Henry asks, what third-party tools do you use?
I'm going to plead the
Any-
fifth.
All right, fair
I
enough.
would rather not disclose it.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah.
We just know that you do use. So cool. All right, I think on that note, this is a good place to end. And Sharon wrote, "Don't say Copilot." Very good. Nobody uses Copilot.
I don't use
But really, thank you so much, Mira, for being here and opening everybody's eyes about privacy engineering and the privacy space as a whole. And we all wish you the best of luck, and keep in touch with us.
No, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Mira.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Have a good night. Take
Thanks.
care.